Hello Y11 and welcome back to an episode of Geography Home Learning. We're going to start with the first lesson of the food supply part of your resource management topic. It's very easy, it's one of the easiest parts of the exam. It's just about revising it. So we're going to start off with describing the pattern of global food insecurity, which is the title of today's lesson. First thing that we're going to have to do is define what food insecurity means as a recap. Then we need to describe the distribution of food insecure countries, so focusing on a choropleth map skill. And then finally, we need to be able to explain why has there been an increase in food consumption around the world. First of all, can you watch the video, which is linked on Class Charts, that is titled, What is Food Insecurity? And I want you just to try and maybe bullet point or mind map or however you want to present it, try and come up with a definition of what food insecurity means. If you want to try and stretch your thinking up to grades sort of 5 and 6, I want you to apply it to world-to-world knowledge. So where in the world do you think is going to be at risk from food insecurity based on the definition? And then be able to explain why that is the case to be working at that grade 7 or more. So we'll just stop talking for a minute or so just so you can watch the video and then resume this video once you have finished watching the YouTube video. Okay, so the definition that you should have got is the state of being without a reliable source of nutritious and affordable food. So it doesn't mean going a few hours without a lunch, or it doesn't mean that maybe one day at work or at school you forgot to take your lunch or you've skipped breakfast. That does not mean that you are food insecure. Food insecurity has to be that lack of food, the lack of not knowing where your next meal is going to come from over an extended period of time. So moving on to describing the distribution of countries which are at risk from food insecurity. This is a typical exam question that you might find in question 4 of the exam of paper 2. So it says, describe the distribution of countries at extreme risk from food insecurity. So if we go old school, and we're going to try and get you to be doing this now with exam questions, we need to start highlighting the parts of the question that we could use in our answer to sort of figure out what the question is asking us. So for example, describe the distribution. All that means is what is the pattern. So we know that we have to describe the pattern. Extreme risk, we know we need to look at the key, which tells us the red countries are the countries that are at extreme risk from food insecurity. So we know we need to use the words distribution, extreme risk, food insecurity, those sorts of words in our answer. So to answer this question, we use the acronym GCSE. So generally, the countries at extreme risk from food insecurity are, and then we use our compass points. Are they in the north, the east, the south, or the west of the world? I've added the equator on and the compass points, which is good practice for you to do when you see a map in the exam. Closer in, a continent at extreme risk from food insecurity is, and again, I've added the continents on, which is really good practice in an exam, just to make that sort of description a little bit easier and it organises your thinking a little bit. So then you pick a continent which is at extreme risk. We know extreme risk are red countries. So which country has the most red country? Which continent, sorry, has the most red countries? Specific country at extreme risk from food insecurity. This map is really good because it actually does label some of the countries in Africa for you. So you just pick one of those which are at extreme risk. And then the exception to the trend. So we have said generally all of the countries at extreme food risk from food insecurity are where? Is there something that goes against this trend? So for example, if we said that the countries at extreme risk from food insecurity are in the south, we would then argue that the exception might be Oceania because Oceania is in the south, but it has a low risk of food insecurity. If this question is a 4 marker, which most of the time they are, you cannot get that 4th mark without saying this is the exception because. If you just say the exception to the trend is Oceania or the exception to the trend is Afghanistan, you would not get that 4th mark because you have to say this is the exception as it is in the south with low risk or it's in the north with low risk, with high risk. You have to make sure you justify why that is the exception. So now I want you to have a go at completing the exam question to a developing standard, which is grade 3 or 4, generally and closer in. For secure, you include the specific country, and then if you want to be stretching for those sorts of grades 6s and 7s with this type of question, you need to make sure you're doing that exception with the explanation as well. And then finally, you are looking at why is food consumption increasing around the world. There are 2 main reasons which are presented by the graph and the infographic on the screen now. So we have a line graph which tells us the GDP per capita of the world. So that tells us how much money the average person in the world earns per person per year. So we can see that that graph is obviously increasing to around just over $10,000 per person per year. Remember that this is an average. So imagine the total income of the entire world divided by 7 billion people. That would give you the average. So we can see that that is increasing. Obviously, we know that the more people that have more money, the more money they have to spend on food. So that is why one of the food consumption that's one of the reasons why food consumption is increasing. The second reason is really, really simple. If you look at the infographic, we can see that in 1990, there were 5.3 billion people. It has gone up to 7.3 billion people. 2030, the projection is 8.5. 2050, the projection is 9.7. And 2100 is predicted to be 11.2 billion. Very simple. More people need more food. And if those more people have a higher development, linking back to the GDP graph, therefore, they are going to have more money to spend on food, leading to why food consumption is increasing. I need you now to open the two PDF files that are on class charts. One is called consumption graphs and one of them is called consumption questions. Okay, you now need to, on a piece of lined paper, complete the questions about the graphs. So developing, the questions are linked directly to the graphs. Secure, you are applying knowledge from the topic wider, so you are bringing some of your knowledge from other parts of the lessons into the questions. And then to be mastered, the mastered questions on the sheet, they are making links to our other topics within geography. So it might link to development, it might link to urban futures and megacities. And then finally, you have completed your home learning. So just as evidence for your teachers, can you please upload a picture of the exam question describing the distribution of food in secure countries? And then can you also upload your questions for the food consumption questions as well, please? So the answers to your food consumption questions need to be uploaded too. Thank you so much for participating in your home learning. We look forward to reading your work and we also look forward to seeing you again.